Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced by North Idaho College located on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guests.
Ladies and gentlemen, today and next week we're going to bring you a two-part series about the Idaho Writers League, but particular emphasis on how to be a successful writer and the techniques, and on today's program in particular, how to become a successful writer, and next week, how to become a successful published author. It's a great pleasure to welcome three people to the program today to carry out this interesting topic. First of all, I welcome to the program Patty Dickinson, who's been with us before. She's a very successful published author, and I know, Patty, your very successful book is in the process of being made into a movie, so you certainly can bring expertise to our viewers. Welcome to the program once again.
Thank you for having me.
I also am very pleased to welcome Mary Langer Smith, who is the Coeur d'Alene chapter president of the Idaho Writers League, and we know you have a lot of expertise, and before the show you were even discussing some of the materials that one could use that would be very successful. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And third, we are also pleased to welcome to the program Betty Rochab, and she is a successful poet, and welcome to our program. We're pleased to have you here too.
It's a pleasure.
And as always, I'm very pleased to have Janelle Burke, who is our regular panelist, and Janelle will start the questioning today of our guest.
It's a pleasure to welcome you here. Such a pleasant subject to talk about, writing and being creative. So many of us would like to be able to do something like that. Mary, can you tell us a little bit about the Idaho Writers League? Where is it found?
The Idaho Writers League was founded in 1940. Betty's going to talk just a little bit about the history. And the thing that makes it unique is it is the official writing group of the state of Idaho. We are a collection of chapters. Right now we have 10 chapters scattered throughout the state, from Boise to the eastern part of the state, Idaho Falls, Pocatello, and here in the north, we're very pleased to have our group.
And you have some at-large members too. People can be at-large members as well.
One of the things that makes that nice is that we have people who live in other states who don't have writing groups, and they can come and be part of us. Then we also have members who don't want to leave but have to. And so we have writers from Wisconsin, Minnesota, and all over that have been former members and have now left the area but have still kept their membership.
Well, let's go a little bit to the history then, Betty, of the Idaho Writers League.
I am in awe of this group, and I have been since 1968. I have held all state offices. I have watched this group grow. It is a wonderful group because at all levels of your writing, you may join. And you can't do anything else but go upwards with it. This group, when I first joined, had such memorable people, and some of you will have forgotten him. Glenn Balch, who wrote The Red Pony, wonderful man. When I met some of these people, when I went to my first state conference, I just said, oh, I will never be able to stay in this group. But that's what this group is for. It is to bring you along at your own speed.
So you improve as you go along.
Tremendously. And the contests help us do that. Mary may want to talk about the contests. Without the contests, I think we would never have survived. They have encouraged people.
Patty, now you've been involved in writing for quite some time. Tell us about the Coeur d'Alene chapter.
I joined the Coeur d'Alene chapter in 1994. I think I represent a lot of people who moved to this area and all of a sudden had this wonderful gift of time. You know, I was an 8 to 5er all my life, and then I moved up here and I was given this wonderful gift of time, and I decided, I want to write. So I checked out the Idaho Writers League and joined, and there's all sorts of, as Betty said, there's all sorts of genres represented, poets, and as well as fiction and nonfiction. And the whole group, the whole state group, is a group of dedicated people of poets and writers. And the founding chapter was in Boise, if I'm not mistaken, and it was in 1940. And our chapter was formed in 1943. And we meet once a month, and actually twice a month, a day meeting, and the Jewett House. On our brochure, we meet at the Jewett House, which is kind of neat. It's historic. And we have a night meeting as well. And the whole purpose is to provide a creative environment for whatever level people are. And it's helped me. I just started out, and here it is. I was published in 5 years, and now my book's being made into a movie. I have a lot to be grateful to this group for.
Yes. You'd learn a great deal.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to Betty. Betty, you, I think, are in the founding of this whole organization. You have this incredible wealth of history. Tell us a little more about the membership. How large is it across Idaho? And again, if you'd be so kind as to break it down too about the types of writers that you have, like the poets or the books that are published, and some are based on, as the case of Patty's, on a real story. Just give us some more information about, you mentioned a couple of people that were in it, but what size is it today?
I do not know our exact membership at this time, but we average between 220 to 187. And these are all people at all levels of their craft. I want to tell you what happened to me. I went, you had to be voted in. This was years ago. I could not read my manuscript. A marvelous historian took my manuscript, read it, I was voted in. The same day that I was voted into that, I joined Toastmasters because I could not express my feelings. And in order to ask people for help, you've got to be able to say, hey, I need your help. And believe me, I got the most help I have never in my life. And the whole state group is that way.
So really supportive system.
Oh, it's tremendous, tremendous.
One of the things that we're quite pleased with is that the state has a convention every year, the last weekend in September, and they put on a real swinging deal. We had one in Sandpoint this last September, and it was particularly memorable because after September 11th, people were in shock. And so as they gathered, it was so interesting because it was like we were cloistered at the resort in Sandpoint. People didn't leave, but they bonded, and we had wonderful people there. Dennis Foley, we had Joan Overfield, many published writers were there with us, agents, and we had an editor. We had a marvelous experience that the first time that some of the people were new members had never been to a writing conference. It was affordable, and it was small enough. There were just about 110 people there. And so it was small enough that people got individual attention, and we've had several members say, I'm still corresponding with Dennis Foley, or I'm still talking to Joan Overfield. So it is a wonderful, intimate experience.
So at this conference, in addition to your members coming from around Idaho and bonding and sharing their works, and I'm assuming successes and frustrations, you have people from outside the state that come
and speak
and do workshops or advise those who are there, like other types of conferences.
And agents. We usually have an agent there who actually you can get an appointment with this agent and have some of your work submitted. So it's a great networking, and it's a launching pad. Those conferences are a launching pad for new writers who've all of a sudden find themselves surrounded by people who've published 7 books, or somebody who's just getting published, or just had a poem show up in a magazine. And a lot of it is motivational.
Patty, I want to move to what we have advertised this program. In addition to the Idaho Writers League, and what it is how to become a successful writer. And all of you and many others in your group have done some really wonderful things. But certainly we've interviewed you about your book on 3 or 4 occasions, and as you've indicated, it's now made into a movie. And I'll ask the others to join in this, but for those young writers out there, I guess inspire to do certain things, or what kind of advice do you have? And I know we've done a lot of shows over the years with poets and literary writers and authors, and they all have some different advice, but share with the viewers, which is my real desire, is to help them some points on what they need to do and
how to get from there to here.
Sure,
or
yes,
absolutely.
And to be successful with their work.
Actually, I think I've heard various percentages from 10% talent to 90% luck. I think the most important thing is, number one, learn the craft of writing. I took a whole year of self-teaching to learn it. I mean, I put in probably 2 years worth of time. So learning the craft is number one.
Now, I want to just stop you there to
Yes.
say, when you said you're very self-disciplined and you have to be committed and dedicated, but what are some of the things you do when you're in that, or through the league? What are some of the things you do to get to the point where you say, I know I can be a successful writer?
Well, first of all, you study the craft of it, and you do this by reading this material and the books that we share. Mary mentioned.
So you're looking at some other successful writers and the techniques
Absolutely,
they use?
and we share, there are givens. I mean, if you were going to learn to fly a plane, you're going to have to read Flying Plane 1A, right? Well, it's the same with writing. There are certain books that tell you the basics. Learn those. The second thing is to write. If you're going to write fiction, write fiction. Keep writing fiction.
You can't learn to ride a bicycle to get on it.
Right, that's exactly right. And then the third thing is to send it out. And the fourth thing is perseverance. And that's part of what our group is all about. We get writers who walk through the door to our meetings and say, gee, I don't know anything about what to do, but I know I just want to write. Well, I have always a list of favorite books that and the 2 books that Mary mentioned are on those, and several others, and then we encourage them. My approach was to do it like office work, which I was familiar with. 9 to 5, I study. In the evenings, I read authors' work, but learn it, write, get it out there, and persevere.
Thank you. And I forgot about Janelle. Mary, you did mention before we were on the air, but our viewers haven't heard, for these young writers that are starting the process, you have a couple of books to recommend to them?
I certainly do. Now, this is commercial fiction.
Sure. Okay.
Because literary fiction most of the time is accepted from MFA candidates, this sort of thing. This is the person who walks in and says, I have a story, I want to tell it, and then I want to sell it. And way back in the Dark Ages, in the 1930s, there was a man named Foster Harris who figured out the formula for writing commercial fiction. And if you don't think there's a formula, you're not with the program. And then his student, Dwight Swain, took it over, he improved it, and he started a division for commercial writing at the University of Oklahoma. Only one in the nation that I am familiar with. Then his student, Jack Bickham, came along and again improved upon it. These men are all deceased. The program is no longer as it was, but their books are out there.
They're the classics, aren't they?
They are.
They're
if you
considered
will
the classics.
take those books, Jack Bickham's book is an extension of Dwight Swain's book, Dwight Swain Techniques of the Selling Writer. And you're going to have to sit down and work with that.
They're in circulation publication now.
Soft cover, reasonably priced. You can order them through, local bookstores.
They carry them now because Patty and I preach about them so
Yes,
much.
yes, we talk about them so much that they've now stocked them.
Okay.
I teach night classes for the Workforce Training Center
At North Idaho College.
at North Idaho College, and my classroom is out in the Post Falls area. And one of the reasons that we think of this chapter so strongly is we in fact on our website have all of the classes that the college offers.
I will ask our staff this time to put up the website if they will, and then people can take down the website.
We've taken from the winter catalog and listed all of the classes on writing so that you can see where they are.
They're up now with the website.
Thank you. And with this, as I teach these people and work with them, they're at all levels again, but there's no place for them to go when they finish a class. They've bonded with a couple of people, but they don't understand a great deal. They're still in the very basic learning places. Where do they come? They come to the Idaho Writers League Coeur d'Alene chapter, where we enfold them, we nurture them, we encourage them. They come back to the classes at the college, and we watch growth. It's so exciting. We have a brand new member that started in November, last April, who has actually had work published in Guidepost, in Ideals,
Writer's Digest.
Writer's Digest.
Phenomenal.
Thank you very much, Janelle Burke.
I'm going to start my questioning round with Betty. Suppose I have written something, but I think, oh, that's kind of dumb. Do I want anyone else to read what I've written? What do you say to them?
I say yes, we want to read it, and we all have a starting point. And encourage everybody who wants to write. We need good writers today, we really do. And I see so many over the years that have come to us and said, I have always known I could write. I had good teachers that said, you can write, you must do something with it. What do I do with it? When they come to the Writers League, we tell them, we encourage. I cannot begin to tell you how many times we have had people come just as I was, frightened. I had been writing since school, and I was still frightened to read. And old members like Grace Roffey Pratt, who has a history of Idaho, a tremendous writer, nourished me, brought me right along, and encouraged me. I wrote other things besides poetry. That is the one thing about the Writers League. You may have something, but we have contests that encourage you to enter every one of them, and they really bring out some marvelous things in people. I hope somebody mentions the Vardis Fisher Award. It has been a growth experience for me. I am basically a humorist, believe it or not. I have had oodles of light verse published, and I found a niche in the Writers League in that field. So, and those pay well. Years ago they were paying $15. They pay even better now. Just little 4-liners. So every facet of the writing that we have, somebody will find their niche, and we just invite them to come. They'll like it.
And what I hear is that it's constructive, good constructive
Oh,
criticism.
yes.
When it is criticism, it's constructive criticism in the form of encouragement. Well, Mary, we have talked about some contests, or that's been mentioned a couple of times, in the Vardis Fisher Award. What is the Vardis Fisher Award?
The Vardis Fisher Award. Vardis Fisher, we don't really realize that, but Vardis Fisher was funny. He was an honorary member of the Idaho Writers League, made in 1960. He was one of the speakers.
He was a humorist.
Yes,
A
very,
humorist.
and of course he's famous, probably Idaho's most famous writer. But he was an honorary member, and so the Humor Award each year is called the Vardis Fisher Award. The money for it was given by Gladys Shank, and so it's been a little fund, and it's a very high honor to win that. I haven't tried it. I write historicals.
And Patty, just suppose that I have a story that I want to tell, but I don't know whether the material's any good or not. How do you tell whether you've got a winning story?
For one thing, almost all stories are winning. If you have the passion to write it, it's usually worth writing. What the problem is, or what the challenge is to put it in the proper form. Now, say for instance that you have a story you want to tell, and you write it down in the way that you know how to write it, and then you would bring it to the our chapter meeting, and we break into groups, and we call them encouragement. No, we don't call them critiquing groups
We call
as
them
much. Feedback and encouragement groups. In other words, we tell you what's right about what you did and how you can improve what you've done. And then you go back with your story and you rewrite it. And you keep bringing it until finally we say, you and we agree, okay. You know, it's not a we tell you, but we show you how to do it, and then you keep rewriting it until you get it right. I've always said, I'm not a great writer. I'm a really good rewriter. I'm an expert rewriter.
The most fun is the first draft.
Yeah, right.
You can just sit down and write that story
And
any
you
old
don't
which
have
way.
to worry about the bad things.
That's right. Just have fun.
Well, I'm certainly not an author of poetry or literary works, but in political science I've written articles for publication, but those are very much on the discipline. And I agree with Patty that there are many rewrites, and of course when you send it off to a journal, they never agree with everything you do, and so they have a different style. And so I guess that leads me into my question, and I'll start with Betty again. Betty, you just have this marvelous way of expressing yourself, and I find it so interesting that when you started writing, you said you entered Toastmasters, but you articulate things so well. Starting with you, at least what I have read and over the years, there's such different styles of writing. And to me, the most appealing writer is the one, and Patty's in that category. I'll mention her because she's the one that I've read of your people. But to me, a great gift is when a writer, as you read through the pages, they almost literally transform you into that scene, or if it's a historical thing, you seem to have gone back there. That's powerful. And so with that long introduction, talk a little bit about different styles of writing and what causes some people to seem, with the training and without having that incredible gift, to grab you and your attention and put you in a setting.
I want to tell you, in all of the years I have belonged, I've attended almost every meeting. When we have new members, I am totally impressed with the difference in their writing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Every writer is an individual, and if they aren't, they should be. If they have the courage to come and share, then we know they're somebody special. These are people who need to write. They have been told by teachers, instructors along the way, other writers' workshops, but they really need to be with other writers so they can start believing in themselves.
Betty, I hear you saying, I think, it's like what fascinates me of the billions of people on the planet, no two have the same fingerprints. I mean, the combinations are unbelievable. So in writing, is it almost from birth on that you are given certain approaches or talents? And even though your league can teach certain techniques, but part of their success will be innate in their approach, is that correct?
Oh, indeed, indeed. And I must tell you, in all the years, I regard every member that has entered and joined an individual. They have their own style, and the strange thing about it, we can say to them, do you think perhaps this might have been said in a different way? Or do you think you have said it right? And you know, 3/4 of the time, they go their way. And that makes them an individual writer. We aren't trying to tell them, we are, in our opinion, perhaps there was just a little something that might have helped it. But we don't know that for sure.
They still have their
their
style.
voice. That's right.
But
it's their voice.
But they may, even with their style, they may have left something out or
That's
not
right.
being clear.
You're just right.
And then they do it, but still in that style.
Right.
Patty?
I was just going to say that business about putting you in a scene and making you feel it and smell it and hear it. My idea about that is you must have this vision. The writer has this vision of what you want. You have to kind of go there yourself. And it's actually taking what you know and what you feel and then it comes through your fingers into this computer and comes out on paper, so that when you read it, you feel what I felt in the first place. And if you can do that, that's how you actually bring that person into the scene. You have to kind of go there yourself, and it comes through as this process: heart, mind, fingers, and then it comes through, and I put you there, or the writer hopefully puts you there.
When I was watching the cowboy go across from Oklahoma to Hollywood,
Yeah.
and going through that canyon where the
yeah.
death almost took place, and the horse was wise enough not to go, I felt I was there, and I was seeing the rocks and saying, "Don't go through." But the point I'm making is, though, that you have to have some kind of ability with words. See, I'm reading your book, but I don't have the movie yet, or I don't have the visuals. I guess what I'm trying to ask is it possible, though, that some writers have a more successful technique of doing that, of getting you there, using words that cause you to visualize, whereas other authors may not be successful at getting you to visualize, but they may have another way of approaching it?
Absolutely. And that's called voice. That is voice. Also, it's technique. It's a combination, because there's such a thing. One of the basic givens about writing is show, don't tell. Don't tell me that the desert, he had a tough time. Make it tough. Show why it was tough. And so that is one of the things. And that's an ability, but it's kind of like writing music. You have, how many notes do you have to, I don't write music, but if I did, you have all these notes. Well, you have all these words, so it's not just what words you use, but the order in which you put them. So some people have an innate ability, others have to learn it, but I think the great writers maybe are born that way.
Yeah. On that note, we have to bring the program to conclusion, but what a great place to stop and build a bridge again for next week. And thank all three of you for being here. It's been very informative, and I hope above all, and I'm sure we have, excited and inspired people to follow in this great work. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been bringing you a program with the Idaho Writers League of the Coeur d'Alene chapter, and how to become a successful writer. And the good news is that they will be back with us again next week to continue this discussion, in particular talk about how to become a published author. I know that is the end goal of most writers, not just to write and keep it secret from everyone else. We hope you will be with us again at that time, and that will conclude our 2-week series on this very, very important topic. I would like to say until then, I hope you have a very good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running entirely college-produced program on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us again at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station. Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced by North Idaho College located on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guests.
We're most pleased to welcome you back to our second week of a 2-week series with the Idaho Writers League. Last week we talked about how to become a successful writer and a lot about the league, and on this program we're going to talk a lot about how to become a published author. That is certainly the goal of most writers, and to share their work with others. Welcoming to the program this week are 3 guests. First of all is Patty Dickinson, who is a very successful published author. Her book has done so well, and she's also looking forward to a movie being made about the book. Patty, we've had you on the program about 4 times. I guess counting last week 5 times, and
Yes.
you're a delight to interview, and welcome back as a member of the Idaho Writers League.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being here.
Also, I'm pleased to welcome back this week Mary Langer-Smith, who is the president of the Coeur d'Alene chapter of the Idaho Writers League. And Mary, we had a great time last week, and thanks for returning this week.
Thank you. It's been a great.
And to welcome, as a first-time guest, is Kristen Howard, who is an inspiring and we know down the road a successful writer. And Ms. Howard, welcome to the program. Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And as always, I'm so pleased to have Janelle Burke, an attorney in the state of Idaho, who's a regular panelist, and we will invite Janelle to start today's questioning.
Last week we talked a bit about how to become a successful writer, and we're going to talk about how to get your works published this week. But one of the things that came out of last week's show was that we learned that you need to work at becoming a successful writer. You have to practice, and you have to share your works with others, and you have to study. Mary, I believe that you're going to have a special event that's going to be happening in our community, and maybe you could share that with the viewers. It's a way for people to become successful writers and also successful publishers.
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful opportunity. The first day of June, it's a Saturday, from 10 until 3:30, we are going to be holding a writer's sampler at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. There will be a luncheon, but we are going to have six published authors who are going to come in different genres and talk to us about how to do it. We have Christian mysteries are suddenly arising on the horizon like a meteor. They're coming up and shooting across the sky, and so if you want to get hooked up with that, that's a way to find out how to do it with this very fine writer. We have a woman who's going to talk to us about writing your family memoir. And we find so many people want to do this, but they don't know where to go or how to start. So that's just a sample of the samplings.
And Patty, can anyone come to this event?
Yes, it's going to be open to the public. In fact, we consider it a community event. That's one of the precepts of our group, is to share with the community. So the public will be invited, and the idea is it's a celebration of writing and of writers. And after the luncheon, and these 6 different speakers talk about different markets and how to their genre that they're expert in. The last hour of the day will be mix and mingle and meet the authors and networking. The authors will sell their books and autograph them, and many of them will have brand new books out. The children's, there's a writer coming to speak on writing for children and young adults. She has 2 books that have just come out. The Christian mystery writer has 2 books that have just come out. So a lot of the writers have had brand new books that have come out and will be kind of introducing to Coeur d'Alene. If people, Coeur d'Alene is a place where a lot of people come and who have maybe changed their lifestyle and now have the opportunity. Those interested in writing, we hope, will come to that event.
Now, Kristen, I know that you're an aspiring writer, and can you tell me, what do you do if you don't know how to spell everything correctly and so forth? Do you just keep right on writing?
Absolutely. Just keep going.
And what have you done? What is your genre?
I'm in fiction right now, short stories, mysteries, science fiction, fantasy. I'm kind of trying out a lot of different ones right now to see find where my voice is.
And what have you been successful with to date?
Well, I'm not published yet, but that hopefully will be soon changing. I am writing right now a novel in the science fiction genre, so that's really my main endeavor right now.
I want to, before we get too far into the program, talk about June the 1st again, because I just am suspicious that some of our wonderful viewers will say, I'll show up. I hear you have a luncheon. I would assume registering ahead of time might be helpful, or at least if you have to order lunch. Is there a way for individuals, this program will air prior to that time, and who do they register with?
The Coeur d'Alene, our email is on the webpage, and it's on your page here today, I believe.
While we're talking, we'll have them put up the website again with the email, so they can get in touch with you through email to register for this conference on June 1st.
Exactly, and then this is our brochure that is found in bookstores, libraries, around where writers hang out, we hope. And on there is my telephone number and, again, the email and web addresses.
Let's give that telephone number too. It's of course for out of this area. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay, area code 208
762
762
4081.
4081 for those who want to call. Now the website's come up and the email is there, and so
and we will have some places around town in the next week or so that where those applications will be available.
they'll certainly be there before this show airs because
Yes.
it's a while before it airs.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. And how much cost? Or what is the cost for?
For members, it's $15, and for non-members, it's $20. That includes the luncheon.
What a deal! I think this is a good organization.
You're
to belong to.
invited, both of you.
Please come.
And people from out of the area are invited.
Absolutely.
So
Anyone
it'd be a
that
nice time
sees-
to have a spring weekend in Coeur d'Alene.
Exactly.
I just have to say that you're so supportive and say everyone can write, but you're looking at one that's not going to be able to be a literary writer. My limited ability is confined to some political science writing, which I don't think you want. Okay, with that, let's go on with some issues about becoming a published author. I'm going to start with Patty because of, again, my knowledge of her. I guess one thing that impressed me so much with you and your book now is give our audience the name of your book.
It's Hollywood the Hard Way, A Cowboy's Journey. It's published by the University of Nebraska Press.
I've read your book, of course, and as I said on the last show, you have this ability to take words and just thrust us into the scene and be there
you.
visually, which is great. But I know that as hard as you worked, and it's exciting, and the reading is so powerful, but you were turned down, and so at the first, and so I'm thinking of those people out there who've done some really good works, and maybe they've had 8 or 10 no's, rejections.
Nothing.
Share it
Nothing.
with them and encourage them.
I might just mention that nobody ever said that writing was easy, you know. I mean, I think you have to be a bit of a masochist to get involved, but
So we know now the first requirement.
Right, that's the first requirement, thick skin. I was turned down 19 times. I've heard of people, I think the Chicken Soup of the Soul people were turned down 35 times.
That was a
That's
great
just,
success.
yeah, that is just normal stuff. So what you have to do is just, the attitude is, it isn't that whether this is publishable, it's just, it's publishable, it's finding the right publisher. And you know, there's a great new event coming about because of the downsizing. You know, we can take that in New York. All the publishers are downsizing. But it also is very positive from the standpoint that all of these independent publishers are springing up. And they are the people, they're the hope for the new writer. And so the key to it is just keep putting it out there. Perseverance is, I think, incredibly important. Mary Smith knows that.
But before I go to Mary, I want to
Yes.
ask you, Patty, as you know, there's a lot of publishers that are very huge companies and others are small, she said, but
Right.
share with us a little technique or two when you send it and they say no. Do you change techniques sometimes or what you say or write to the next one?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the first thing you do is you call the publisher
Okay.
and you find out the name of the editor for your particular genre. And you don't send it dear sir or gentleman. You know their name. You know who they are and what they are. You know who you're dealing with, so that you're dealing with the right person within that big publisher. And the nice thing about the smaller publisher is that they're easier to get to. And you know, yes, you do change your letter. I mean, there's a kind of a query letter, a standard cover letter that you're supposed to write. Beef it up. That may be your that may be your entrance or not. So yes, I've tried the all sorts of resort. You know, like that this is my entry into this particular field and introduce myself, and then a little blurb. That's usually what it is. But you try to make it an exciting letter.
Let me have one quick experience and then go to Mary. I had written a political science article on a rather unique subject with another political scientist, and we sent it to a major political science journal. And they turned it down and said, but however, we want permission to use the wonderful charts in the article we're doing.
Oh, thank you
And the
very
other
much.
professor said to me, let's do it. And I said, under no circumstance. And we sent it to a different publisher, and they published it. So he was about to give away a portion of our article.
That's right.
He was kind, and I wasn't. So anyway, in all seriousness, the point I'm making is you have to watch about those things where somebody wants to take some information and use it, and then that would ruin your opportunity with some other
Absolutely,
publisher.
and with a brand new writer, you know, like your colleague was very willing to do this, and you were very wise in not doing it, because new writers are very anxious to get published, and sometimes they do things like that. So
I suggested to him it was stealing a portion of your work. Anyway, Mary, to you, and would you elaborate too upon this about some tips to not only being persistent, but maybe sometimes do you start with your first work maybe at the wrong publisher, or maybe you should look at more of the small publishers?
I'm not a big one for looking at publishers, so I'm going to take you a different route, if I may. First of all, I'd like to mention that calling a big publisher is probably, in today's world, not a real happy experience. Literary Marketplace is found in your public library. It's a very expensive volume, but it has every bit of information that you could possibly want in it, and it's worth pursuing. There are web pages where you can go and find everything you want to know, and they're updated continually. After you are a published author, Patty and I can call and say, we have published ta-dum, ta-dum, and they kind of stand up and salute, and it's fine. But if you're trying, like Kristen is, to get into the field, it's probably not the best thing. I'm a very strong believer in conferences. You go, you meet them face to face. Kristen, tell them who you're writing with, too.
Well, I'm working with Dennis Foley right now. I met him at the Idaho Writers League conference this last year. He teaches through UCLA Berkeley via Montana. So he's really been a great mentor. I met him at the Idaho Writers League conference and never expected to find such a wonderful resource right there in my own backyard. It was really a wonderful experience.
And he can help you open some doors too.
Maybe. We'll see.
Dennis Foley helped to write many television shows. And Private Benjamin?
He worked on MacGyver.
Yes, that's right.
He moved from the Army to working with Hollywood, so he's got a wealth of experience across a lot of industries. And a resource like that for a new writer to access is really, really beneficial. I would say that the number one thing about a new writer, you need to network in with the writing community, and that's why I joined the Idaho Writers League. It's so much of what you do as a writer is very solitary, and you need some place that you can go and connect with not only people who are published and can help you with these tricks of the trade, but also people who are in the same situation you are, and they can share with you sort of the troubles and also the triumphs. You write some fabulous paragraph that you're so proud of, and there's just 76 trombone parade, So you need a place to go and
Thank you.
Connect with people.
Janelle Burke.
I want to talk a little bit about genres of writing, the different kinds of writing, so that people understand that there are different places that you would go to find those published. I think we all know that there's the Reader's Digest, and there are certain kinds of things that are published there, which is different from Newsweek, which is different from Guideposts, if you will. But let's start with you, Mary, about some of the various genres. What are they?
When you go into a bookstore and you look around and say, where am I and what do I want to look at? You will see all these wonderful big signs on the shelves hanging overhead. And if you, as a beginning writer, unless you are very talented like our Patty, and can go to a Nebraska press, in other words, in a store, Patty's book would be found in the general fiction. But for a beginning writer, generally, you need to have some kind of genre that you're going to write, and you need to study it like crazy. You need to learn all there is to know about it. For instance, Dennis Foley writes Shoot 'em Deads about Vietnam. They are fun to write for guys, and when you talk about being placed into something with wonderful writing, Tony, it's not going to happen in one of those books. They put you there, and then we have a great big battle, and then we bleed, and then we go to somewhere else. And that's a genre. So you read and you write what you understand, and you work at it in that light. I write historical fiction, Christian historical fiction, because I can't bear to write the love stories they want for the Harlequins and others. And so that's a wonderful choice for me. But
you have to know the purpose of your writing, in other words.
Exactly.
You have to know who you are.
That's right.
And Patty, it's important to know who you are when you're writing to the publisher then, because that's going to depend on where you're going to be, in what slot you're going to be placed. Is that correct?
Yes, I view the publisher's offices as lined with, walled with circles and triangles and rectangles, and then you call them, where can I put her or him, because that's the way they view it. But there's mystery genre, there's historical fiction, there's women's contemporary fiction, there's Christian, which is really big right now, children's. And then under each one of those umbrellas are various. Romance is one of the biggest genres, going, and women buy 80% of the books. So
and the old westerns.
Right,
Still,
yes.
that was a whole area.
And now political thrillers are, and war. So I couldn't even guess the number of genres. And then under each one, there's a dozen more. So it's finding your niche, I think, is a good way to put it.
I'm going to ask Kristen a question. This might be a little bit of an unfair question, but I sense that you're a very good writer. Have people asked you to ghost for them? In other words, to write something for them. They know what the story is that they want to tell, but they want someone now who's a good writer to tell that story for them.
I have had that happen, but not in the fiction realm. Through work connections, I have done that in the marketing realm, but not yet in fiction.
But that is a possibility.
It is.
And that's something that does happen rather frequently. I'll ask you first, and then perhaps Mary can fill us in as to whether that happens.
I would imagine collaborative writing is becoming very popular as people are able to connect over the internet and work with writers, as I'm doing with Dennis Foley. You're able to really bridge gaps, and if you have a story that you really want to tell and think you might not have the words to get it out, collaborating with another author would be a great way to go.
And before the show, you shared with us that you were an English major, and so you know some of the things that are necessary to go into a good sentence and be able to spell and those kinds of things.
Those are the mechanics of the writing, and that is something that can be learned. So I would encourage anybody who's feeling uncomfortable about the mechanics side of it, don't let that stop you, because that's certainly something that there's help with, either through a ghostwriter or through editors. Editors are wonderful. But that is something that's kind of the second half. The first half is you just have to have something to say.
Mary?
First of all, I want to put a plug in for the college, because North Idaho College has a wonderful a number of classes in all kinds of areas, including grammar. Now, my forte is mathematics. I have a doctor's degree in mathematics, and so, what are you doing writing Christian romances? Because it's something that is a lot of fun to do. But the writing needs to be studied, whatever it is you're going to do. And you need to understand, I want to go back to rejection, because we certainly get a lot of it. One of the things you need to realize as you're writing, that you can write to a house and you can follow their directions and do everything they ask you to do, send the manuscript in, and they reject it. They have quotas and they fill, as Patty showed, these shelves. You can think of shelves, and they've got a bookshelf full, and they have to make this year's group of books. Well, they may have 4 in the line you just wrote. And so you may be the best writer in the world, but you're going to get rejected. So it has nothing to do with the quality of what you're doing. It has to do with the persistence of sending it out. And we have contests in the IWL where you can send your work that's judged by experts and professionals. We don't have a lot of money behind them, $25, but it still goes great on the resume to say, I was Idaho's Writer of the Year. Patty has been Idaho Writers of the Year. I have been Idaho Writer of the Year. Betty, from last week, had received the first Lifetime Achievement Award for the year 2000. It's a new title.
She also was the Idaho Poet of the Year.
She has been the poet.
She's a wonderful poet.
That's really important. And so you're also indicating if particular published shelf's full and go to another shelf that's not full.
That's
right.
A couple of things. First of all, I want to recognize Mary's work. And Mary, we don't have a lot of time left, but briefly, you've been published. What's some of your latest works that have been published?
Well, my latest work was published, unfortunately, in '96. I've had an interesting 5 years. And I'm working now on a novella for Barber Publishing. I have just received a hard copy. I mean, we're talking dust jacket hard copy. First one from Zondervan. That's the largest religious publishing house in the world. I have written for Thomas C. Cook. I have written for Accent. My work has been picked up and reprinted by Guideposts.
Mary has over 1 million copies of her books in print. You wouldn't say that, so
Well,
I'm going to
Patty,
say that.
Thank you for saying that. That says it all.
That says
I
it
just
all.
want to get that in.
Thank you.
Here's something that I see with students when we're dealing in political science with research papers and all, and maybe they've done really wonderful research, but the title is just not attractive. And so I go after them and say, why don't we really say in the title what you've done instead of hinting at it? So when I go to a bookstore, there's many books I never even open the cover unless the title draws me. So in writing books and all, who would like to take that on? Because you can really draw the attention, I guess, of a publisher, certainly of people to sell books, that is, to buy them. Isn't the title terribly important?
The title, yes, is terribly important. Are you talking about to sell it to the publisher or to sell it to the public?
I would think that if it drew the attention of the publisher, if they're well versed in this, it would also appeal to the general public. Now, Patty, I know you've had some struggles with like disagreeing with script writers for your movie or whatever. But isn't that really
absolutely
the way you grab their attention?
Absolutely, and like Hollywood the Hard Way, that happened to be the word Hollywood was what leaped off the page at this particular editor at the University of Nebraska Press. So, yes, it's an incredibly and coming up with the right title. Would you not agree? Is really tough. Oh. It's hard. It's hard for me.
We work titles and work titles and work titles. I really honestly can't start to write until I have a title.
So you start with that?
I really do. That sounds awfully silly. With the historical, I start with a situation, a date. My newest one starts with the Chicago fire, October 8th, 9th of 1871. And then I go from there. But what do you do, Kristen?
I do a bit of both. I start with a title that I think encapsulates what I think I'm writing, and then as I go through the process of telling the story and then kind of weeding through it and editing it, I may find that with several stories actually that the title doesn't really cover it anymore, and it'll need to be adjusted. I also had heard some suggestions that think about where on that shelf your book is going to be, and is it going to jump out compared to those other titles? Is it going to seem like fish out of water? Is that a good thing? It's something else to think about.
One question that I have for any of you, and I'll start with Kristen on this. You sit down and you know this is going to be a long journey, and the very first step is, well, what am I going to write about? Does the sky open up and light descends and says,
"Don't we wish?"
Kristen, write on this. I suspect that's not what happens. But how do you choose the topic? What is there something? Let me real quickly say this. Friend I have that's a painter, he picked me up at the airport once, and it was the most incredible lightning storm I'd ever seen, and we stopped and ate, and he kept watching the sky. The next week he started doing a beautiful painting of lightning, and he was inspired by that particular experience. How do you choose a topic?
I think there are some universal human themes. There are struggles that people go through, relationships that people have, and you can start with that, and just by virtue of telling it through your words and through your experiences, it's going to become unique.
But is there something happening that affects you at a particular moment to choose that topic?
It can be. I think as a new writer, you draw so much from your own experience. Okay. I think that I draw a lot from that right now, and I'm thinking I probably shouldn't have revealed that, or I should just throw that first book out right now. But it can be an event. Sometimes it can just be a theme that has been recurring for you and you want to share.
Okay. Reoccurring. Mary?
There are the 16 archetypes that... 8 for men, 8 for women, that cover combinations thereof that give you the people that you're going to deal with. You can make them crazy, you can make them normal, you can make them sweet, you can do all kinds of things, but these are the characters around which you do all of these things, and there are 20 plots. People say, there's a whole 100. No, there are 20. Now, there used to be 36, but we don't deal with 36 anymore. Some of them are really tacky and old. But we have about 20 plots that we can work with. You can mix and match any way you want to with them. And so you take your 16 archetypes and your 20 plots, and it's limitless. Figure it out mathematically.
I'm rushing because of time, but give us a couple examples of both.
Well, if you have the shy maiden and the healthy hero, but the hero has had a poor background. So she's rich, he's poor. I mean, aren't you seeing Gary Grant and Deborah Carr here coming to life, and they're stranded, shipwrecked?
I believe I've seen a couple of movies that take on that particular plot. So that is really helpful. We've had so much fun. We're out of time again, unfortunately, and both last week and this week the time flew by because your gifts show, and you articulate as in the way that you write. And good luck to the Idaho Writers League, and I can see why people would belong. And Kristen, good luck to you, and I'm sure you'll be successful, and you've got great support system here and other places. Ladies and gentlemen, Janelle Burke and I have enjoyed bringing you a 2-week series on Idaho Writers League, talking about how to be a successful writer and also how to become a published author. And we've had some individuals with us that has certainly proven that can happen. And one of the great secrets of writing and books and poet and all of those things is to make us all enjoy life and have happiness in life. And we thank them for that. We'd like to invite you to be with us again next week at this same time, and we will move to yet another issue. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running entirely college-produced program on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us again at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.